You know, ever since the OG was released in 2016, the Pixel line has famously made a name for itself for its excellent camera performance. When the Pixel 2 came out, many people called it the best smartphone camera of its time. So, naturally, when Pixel 3 was announced in 2018, it had some very bold footsteps to follow. By the time I got my hands on it, there had already been multiple reviews that confirmed, unsurprisingly, yes, Pixel 3 has a fantastic camera that was, by some degree, better than its predecessor, as it should be. So as soon as I was done recording the unboxing and setting up Pixel 3, I absolutely could not wait to test out the camera myself, to see for myself how good it really was. All the anticipation, all the hype over this one lens had led me to this moment. I opened up the camera app, tapped to focus, prepared to have my mind blown. I pressed the shutter button. You know, it honestly wasn't a bad picture, but I gotta be honest, I was a little underwhelmed. I just didn't see how this camera set itself apart from any of the other big names. So the first few days with Pixel 3, I tried a couple of different shots in different environments, and I didn't feel impressed. I mean, the shots were okay, but that's all they were, just okay. But you already know the title of this video. You already know something somewhere changes my mind. And I wish it was a specific, dramatic moment in time that did it, but it wasn't like that at all. Throughout the weeks, as I began taking more photos with this camera for the full review, I gradually began to understand it, how it behaved in diverse scenarios, in different lighting, shooting different subjects. And I noticed that the images had a signature look. First of all, the overall dynamic range is impressively wide. Google's HDR Plus is a real gift. Seriously, you can shoot straight into the sun and still manage to get so much detail and color out of the other areas in the image. Some helpful advice is to tap to focus on the darker subject and just take the shot anyway. The software processing will handle the rest. You'll notice Pixel 3 has a tendency to underexpose shots. This is a challenge a lot of phones struggle with, as they tend to overexpose to make shots look brighter. But Pixel knows better. Shots end up looking a bit darker, but it helps bring out incredible detail, especially in the highlights. Which brings me to the second characteristic, sharpness. Pixel 3 pictures have spectacular sharpness throughout the image, anything that's in focus. You really see all the details, the tiny grains of your subject that you might have missed with your own eye. It really makes you see things in a new light. Then there's the colors, and here's where Pixel does a great job of balancing a nice amount of saturation to make things pop, but not overdoing it to make things look unrealistic. And this goes for the white balance too. The color temperature is usually spot on, definitely an improvement over Pixel 2's cooler colors. Some people might not like the colors or think the images look too processed, but Pixel lets you shoot raw if you prefer to have more control. For me, Google's processing looks awesome. It's really in line with how I like my pictures. And if you like Android and you're pretty heavy into social media, Pixel 2 or 3 is the way to go because they're the only ones that process any pictures you take in apps like Snapchat, for example. This is thanks to Pixel's Visual Core chip, which is a dedicated onboard graphics processor. All other Android phones just take a screenshot of the viewfinder in apps like Snapchat. You can actually see how much more natural and better looking Pixel's picture is compared to this OnePlus. Finally, let's talk about bokeh. The natural depth of field here is pretty shallow for a phone, thanks to the sensor size and the fast aperture. You don't always need portrait mode for those creamy backgrounds. But when you do use portrait mode, the background looks even better, even softer without as much grain. Google's stubbornness to stick with one lens in the back really led to some awesome advancements in computational photography. Basically, because there's no second camera to measure depth, Pixel 3 uses its fantastic face detection autofocus system and machine learning to improve that estimation. For time's sake, I won't go into the technicals, but I'll leave a link below if you want to learn more on it. But the end result is pretty good. Edge detection isn't always perfect, but when it does get it right, you get some phenomenal portraits, especially because your foreground will be razor sharp. And this applies to portraits and selfies too, on both the regular and the wide-angle lenses. I'm really not big on selfies, but you can wholeheartedly utilize the two focal lengths to get some flexibility in your shots. So you don't sacrifice image quality if you use one lens or the other. You get the same overall look here as the back images with the same kind of processing. So with the three lenses together, you've got a pretty versatile shooter in your hands. And we cannot talk about how versatile this camera is without talking about night sight, Pixel 3's most iconic most famous camera feature. If you're in a dark place, Pixel automatically suggests using night sight. This is basically a long exposure photo mode, so as long as you keep your hands steady, just press the shutter and let the software go to work. What is insanely impressive is how Pixel manages to accurately pull color and detail from barely any light. I've never been able to take decent pictures of stars in the night sky with a phone, but night sight lets you do that. Now, low light, which is normally the bane of all smartphone cameras, it's really not so bad anymore. If this review seems overly positive to you, it's because it is, but for good reason. I really like the Pixel 3 camera, but video performance helps balance out my perspective on it a little bit. I mean, don't get me wrong, videos do look very good. There's a good amount of detail, colors are accurate, exposure compensation is quick and smooth, and stabilization is the best in class. But the audio recording sounds so tinny, and there's no 4K 60. You can't even change the frame rate for 4K video to anything but 30 frames in the native app, which is weird. I'm not alone when I say this, but if you're looking for a phone that does the best video right now, the 2018 iPhones are hands down what you need. Their audio sounds better, you get more frame rate options, they have much better color and excellent dynamic range in video. And while we're here, let's talk more about those competitors. Among 2018's best phone cameras, you consistently hear about, of course, Pixel 3, but also the iPhone XS series and the Huawei Mate 20 Pro. Now, full disclaimer, I haven't personally used either of those devices, but I have looked at several comparison videos on YouTube, and personally for pictures, I like Pixel 3 the most. But of course, you should take my bias into consideration, so I recommend you look at those comparisons yourself and come to your own conclusions. Okay, we've talked a lot about this camera, about its many features. We've looked at tons of images and video samples, but you know what? I haven't told you the most important reason why I think this camera is so good. See, all of those features, all of that, it combines into one final conclusion, and it's so absolutely simple. This camera makes me a better photographer. No, gear does not define your skills, and what you're shooting ultimately matters more than what you're shooting on. But it helps to have a tool that inspires you to keep shooting. The hardware, the software, these features, they all converge together magnificently to make images that are so good. It just makes you want to keep taking more and more and more. It makes you practice. When you look at the shot you just took and you admire the crisp detail, the dramatic but true-to-life colors and exposure, the superb dynamic range, you feel rewarded because you made that. And once you begin to understand how the camera is working, what its character is like, it makes you feel confident with it. That's when you can begin exploring, trying out different ways to frame the shot, moving to another location to get a different angle, trying out different exposures. The point is, Pixel 3 makes it so easy and convenient to capture good, high-quality images that it encourages you to become creative with it. In other words, the camera doesn't limit your imagination, so don't be afraid to let it loose. And inspiration is everywhere if you just take the time to look around you. At this point, anytime I walk outside, I've realized I'm so much more observant of my surroundings, of the entire world around me. Seriously, this camera brings out the colors and the fine details even in things that at first look really ordinary and mundane. It makes you look at even the things you're so used to in a new and interesting light. It changes your mindset from constantly being on autopilot to being creatively curious. And to me, that's what it means to become a better photographer. To appreciate those finer details all around us in the world. To be inspired by both the complexity and the simplicity of it all. Inspired so much that it drives you to capture those moments of inspiration, even if it means waking up before the sun rises and going out into the cold morning. Pixel 3 does all of these things spectacularly, and that's exactly what I think good technology should be. A tool that helps you connect with the world around you, not take you away from it. And that, my friends, that's why the Google Pixel 3 camera is so good. It's been a little bit. I hope you enjoyed the video. It was definitely a lot of fun to make. I wanted to mention a few other things real quick. First of all the pictures and the video samples used in this project were all straight out of Pixel 3's camera. No edits or anything like that. And that just makes more sense to me for a camera review because you want to be able to see the camera's actual performance, not necessarily the way I edit my photos. I'll also upload all the files used in this project somewhere in their original resolutions so you can take a closer look at them if you want to. There are also a ton of other Pixel camera features that I didn't talk about, like photo booth and photosphere and playground and top shot. Some of those are actually pretty handy, but I didn't really include them because I didn't end up using them all that much, even though they are nice to have. I'll link a video below if you want to look at Pixel 3's camera features one by one. But seriously, things have been busy and I'm trying to get back on a consistent schedule. Actually, that implies that I had a schedule to begin with. I didn't. You know, I'm a firm believer in quality over quantity, though it is my goal to increase both. We're almost at 100 subscribers, and even though that seems small, just the sheer amount of support and nice comments and feedback on the last 2 videos, I'm absolutely humbled by you guys. Thank you so much for that. But of course, if you did like this video, please do me a favor and hit that like button. I know it seems small, but it really does help me out. And if you're new here, welcome to the channel. I hope you stick around. Okay, that's finally it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you liked it. My name's Faison, and I wish you peace.